And now, with the latest local and regional coverage, it's KCAU 9 News at 10. Election 2022 with Tim Seaman and Sophie Erber.
And good evening. Thanks for joining us on this election night. I'm Tim Seaman.
And I'm Sophie Erber. After months of campaigning and millions of dollars spent on ads, the polls are now officially closed here in Siouxland, and the results of these 2022 midterm elections are rolling in.
And we have complete coverage from our KCAU 9 News team this evening with updates from all three Siouxland states and live reports from around Siouxland. But we want to get started tonight with the race that's gained national attention, and that's Iowa's U.S. Senate seat. Chuck Grassley, the longtime incumbent, looking to hold on to that seat, and he has done that tonight. Been declared the winner, 55% to 45% of the vote. That's with 68% of the vote so far reported, but Grassley has been called the winner tonight. This is his 8th term at the U.S. Senate. He was first elected to serve as Iowa Senator back in 1981, and at the end of his current term, or his next term, I guess I should say, he will be 95 years old.
That's right, Tim. Grassley's age has been a topic discussed by pundits and pollsters alike. An October poll by Selzer & Company found more than 60% of people surveyed said his age is a real concern to them.
He was up against Sioux City Democrat Mike Franken, who was making his second run for the Senate, but that will fall short tonight. Again, about 10%. The difference between those two candidates in the race for Iowa's U.S. Senate seat.
That's right. Governors are also being elected in all three Siouxland states tonight. South Dakota and Iowa, though, have incumbents on the ballot.
And the Associated Press has called the race here in Iowa. Governor Kim Reynolds will get a second term as governor, edging out the Democrat Deidre DeGiere and Libertarian Rick Stewart tonight. Reynolds and DeGiere collected nearly all of the votes inside their own party, but polling headed into the day showed that Reynolds had a double-digit lead among independents, and so she's swept that in as well. Let's move on to House races tonight that are now posting numbers. Many state and federal elections, of course, impacted by redistricting following the 2020 census. Iowa's 4th congressional district remains solidly red, though, and tonight an overwhelming win by the incumbent Randy Feenstra with 74% of the vote. He was up against Ryan Melton, the Democrat, and Brian Holder also on the ballot tonight. And even though all the votes aren't in, Feenstra has been declared the winner.
Now, Democrats control both chambers of Congress entering these midterm elections, but that control tonight was up for grabs. Republicans hold 3 of 4 Iowa seats in the U.S. House, but thanks to redistricting, both parties think they might be able to make some gains. In Iowa House District 1, Marionette Miller Meeks, the Republican incumbent, was against Christina Bohannon, the Democrat on the ticket. Now, this race is too close to call, as you can see right there. Just a few votes separating both women there on the ballot tonight, with just 58% of precincts reporting at this hour.
Here's the House District 2 race where Ashley Hinton was the incumbent, first elected in 2021. Liz Mathis, the Democrat, a current member of the Iowa Senate, a longtime member in the Iowa legislature. And this one still is close, but it looks like Hinton will hang on to her seat, at least this point, with about 50% of the votes in. And Iowa District 3, which included most of the Des Moines metro area, is held by Democrat Sidney Axne, and it looks like this is going to be a late evening tally as well. 92% of the vote in this one, and Axne just a couple percentage points ahead against Zach Nunn, longtime member of the Iowa State Senate. And this one is really down to the wire, I guess, no other way to say that. Switching from the congressional races to state races tonight. Who will represent Siouxland? The big question in the next session in Des Moines, the race for state senate in District 1. It's really been one of the most focused races here. Hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on those candidates.
That's right. But did those campaign dollars have an impact on voters? We find out this evening. Joining us live now from Sergeant Bluff, KCAU 9's Jason Taktagian. Jason?
Tim and Sophie, both the Republican and Democratic parties have spent more than $250,000 on their respective candidates, and Siouxlanders have seen that in the form of digital, TV, and radio ads for the past several weeks. Now, in the race for Iowa State Senate District 1, Democrat Jackie Smith earned 44% of the votes. Meanwhile, her opponent, Republican Rocky DeWitt, earned 55%. DeWitt will now be the Iowa State Senator for District 1. Rocky DeWitt has been on the county board since 2016, and he's lived in Siouxland his entire life. And guess who is joining us today? The man himself, Rocky DeWitt. First of all, how are you feeling after getting the victory?
Let's call it euphoric and overwhelmed at the moment. I'm not sure how to feel. It's a unique experience. It's exciting and scary at the same time.
Awesome. And what do you want folks to know about your, basically your campaign? What do you want folks to know about?
I think most of the folks in the county, rural and city, understood that I listened to the constituents on various issues. And I think they realize that. They know that I'm going to work for the entire district, if not the entire part of the state, in working for them, because that's what it is. It's a state senate job, and I work for this district to represent what's going on in this district.
Perfect. All right, I think that's all the time we got for you, Rocky. Thank you so much. And again, congratulations. And another local race for Iowa State House puts two longtime rivals and political figures against one another. That's for the Iowa State House District 2 race. Republican Bob Henderson received 57% of the votes, compared to Democrat Steve Hansen receiving 42% of the votes. In 2020, Steve Hansen beat Bob Henderson for the Iowa House District 14 seat. However, Henderson came out on top this year, and he says he's more than ready to get to work.
It's like any victory. I've been in a lot of football games and a lot of athletic events, and when you win, the elation goes away rather quickly because the work starts afterwards, and now the work starts. So it's important. But I'm extremely pleased. I'm especially pleased with the way that the Republican Party has done the things that we've done.
If you want to follow all the latest local elections, make sure you go to our website. That's SiouxlandProud.com or the KCAU 9 News app. But for now, in Sergeant Bluff, I'll be sending it back to you guys in the studio. Jason Toktagian, KCAU 9 News.
All right, thanks so much, Jason. Of course, that was Bob Henderson speaking with him just a few moments ago, and we will check back with Jason later in the show.
Let's turn now, though, to the governor's races. We'll check South Dakota first. The latest polling indicated that Kristi Noem would be elected to a second term, and that tonight, as we try to check those latest numbers, appears that it will be the case, as she has now been declared the winner with 63% of the vote, that with only 43% of those precincts reporting. Although Noem is strongly favored, she won by just 2 percentage points back in 2018. She's the winner tonight against Jamie Smith, the Democrat, and Tracy Quint, who is also on the ballot.
That's right, and we hope to hear from her later in this newscast. And South Dakotans got another chance to legalize recreational marijuana in the Rushmore state. South Dakota initiated Measure 27, would legalize the possession, use, and distribution of marijuana for recreational purposes. Now, it does appear that voters with 44% of precincts reporting so far are saying no to initiated Measure 27, but of course, not even half the precincts reporting at this hour. A close race there tonight. Now, in 2020, if you remember, voters did pass Amendment A with 56% approval at the time for the same thing. However, the state Supreme Court struck down the measure because it violated the state's so-called single rule. So it had to go back to voters now in this election. Speaking of which, residents in North Sioux City have decided not to expand the sale of medical marijuana. Initiated Measure 5 was defeated tonight. This was not a very close race. 71% of voters said no to this. This is with 100% of precincts reporting. Now, North Sioux.
Well, let's move ahead. Staying, I guess, in South Dakota, the state will continue to be served by 2 Republicans in the U.S. Senate. The Associated Press has called a race tonight for the Republican incumbent John Thune, winning re-election to head back to Washington. Thune with 71% of the vote tonight against Brian Bangs, the Democrat, and Tamara Lessner, who was also on the ballot tonight. Those races are now final, and Thune has a chance to succeed Senator Mitch McConnell in the leadership role in Washington. He currently ranks there number 2 in the order. We have earlier tonight, I guess, the Senator Thune was speaking with folks at a rally in Sioux Falls. Let's hear what he had to say.
But what really makes this state tick and what makes it special is our people. And I'm grateful for all of you who have placed your trust in me again this evening to serve and to represent you in the United States Senate.
In the House, incumbent Dusty Johnson retains his seat as well, handed a third term by voters tonight. The race was called by the Associated Press early this evening. He's got 79% of the vote tonight. The Libertarian candidate Colin Duperl with just a 21%. No Democrat in that race tonight. Dusty Johnson will head back to Washington to serve as an at-large member of the U.S. House of Representatives.
Meanwhile, in the Cornhusker State, Nebraskans have a new governor as of 2023. This is after state term limits kept two-term Governor Pete Ricketts from running again. So Jim Pillen, the Republican, on the ballot tonight against Carol Blood, the Democrat, and there was a Libertarian on it, Scott Zimmerman, as well. Just 46% of precincts reporting, though, so this race too close to call so far. Jim Pillen, the Republican, is in the lead with 55% of the vote at this hour. It appears that not having Trump's endorsement did not impact Pillen's campaign. And Nebraska's race for House District 1 is a rematch of a summer special election.
That's right, and joining us now from Divots Event Center in Norfolk with results is KCAU 9's Nick Wilson, where incumbent Mike Flood is gathered with supporters there tonight. Nick, give us an update on the scene.
Tim and Sophie, the Divots Conference Center is packed with tons of people tonight. Mike Flood beat Patty Banson Brooks back in that June election. Tonight, they are close in this poll. Now, Flood has only held his U.S. House seat for 3 months. He was elected to office after Jeff Fortenberry resigned after 3 felony convictions for lying to the FBI about campaign contributions. Flood previously held office as a state senator. I spoke with Flood earlier today about what this election means for Nebraskans, and he says this is an opportunity for new leadership to make a difference in people's lives.
It's about change. And I hope and pray that Americans take the opportunity to change directions, install Republican leadership in the House of Representatives, and let's get to work and put the end on all of this out-of-control spending.
He says the federal government has spent trillions of dollars and rising inflation is hurting Nebraskan families. Pansing Brooks has served as a member of the Nebraska legislature since 2014. And if he's reelected, Flood says he would like to see a new Speaker of the House and would also like America to improve its border security on its southern border. For now, reporting live in Norfolk, Nebraska, Nick Wilson, KCAU 9 News.
All right, Nick, thanks for that. And we should say it looked like it was about 51% of the vote. So still very close there in that Nebraska race.
Absolutely. Those results will be finalized on our website at SiouxlandProud.com. But we are about to hear from Governor Kristi Noem, who has been elected now again as governor of the Rushmore State.
I remember that in my role as governor, it's my privilege to serve you, to honor our Constitution, to keep government limited, and to protect the American ideals of freedom and opportunity. Over the last 4 years, South Dakota has been an example to the nation of the power of those ideals. We have proven that when leaders remember what their authority is and what their authority isn't, that's when the people have the opportunity to succeed. Thanks to all of you, we are going to keep proving it for the next 4 years. In South Dakota, we found the opportunity in a very difficult time of crisis. We could have done what every single other state did. We could have fallen in line. That would have been the easy choice to make. Other governors in the country were making that choice. But my dad always said, we don't complain about things, we fix them. We could have complained about the difficult choices that were in front of us, and frankly, it would have been easier to complain, to follow the pack, to do what everybody else was doing, to live in fear, to shut down our states and our communities, but instead we got to work. I learned everything that I could about this virus. I told people what I knew, and I trusted them to exercise their personal responsibility to do the right thing. I knew that we would get through this together. There were hard days,
Again, that's Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota. She's in Sioux Falls tonight with the other GOP candidates, including Dusty Johnson and Senator Thune there tonight as they celebrate what looks to be big wins across the board.
That's right. And as voting wraps up here in Siouxland, all the polls have officially closed now. We will, of course, have the latest results posted on our website, SiouxlandProud.com.
And we'll continue our on-air coverage coming up. But first, here are a few more results from around Siouxland tonight. And welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Woodbury County's 16-year attorney faced off with a member of his own office staff this election.
Sorry, and we check in once again for the latest on that race with KCAU 9's Jason Toktagian. Jason, have you been able to talk to either candidate this evening?
That's right, Tim and Sophie, hello once again. Republican James Loomis has worked in the Woodbury County Attorney's Office for the last 19 years, and all but 3 of those he's been working with PJ Jennings. Now, both candidates ran for the Woodbury County Attorney's Office, and incumbent PJ Jennings received 40% of the votes. However, James Loomis received 59% of the votes, claiming victory. Now is able to catch up with Loomis about what his goals are for his term.
I want to communicate and I want to form partnerships through that, because it's when you form those partnerships that what you allow the county attorney's office to do is serve better. And by serving better, what I mean is holding people accountable for what they've done.
Another local race is for the Woodbury County Supervisors for District 2, and that was between Democrat Jeremy Dumkrieger and Republican Dan Bittinger, and it was Bittinger who came out on top with 62% of the votes. The seat was held by Republican Justin Wright, who decided not to seek another term, and guess what, guys? We have another person joining us, and it's the man himself, Dan Bittinger. Dan, first of all, how are you feeling after getting this victory, man?
Right, man. Well, I'm feeling relieved. Glad to see all the hard work paid off and just be able to cross that finish line and win tonight.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think that's all we got time for. I thank you again for joining us, and looking forward to what you got in store for us. Right. But again, guys, if you have any more questions about local races and want to get caught up to date with those local races, all that information is on our website. It's SiouxlandProud.com or the KCAU 9 mobile app. But for now, I'll send it back to you guys in the studio, reporting live in Sergeant Bluff. Jason Toktagian, KCAU 9 News.
All right, Jason, thanks for that live update. Now back to the statewide races tonight. Let's check the run for state auditor here in the state of Iowa. Rob Sand, I should say, looking to return to office, and with 78% of the precincts counted, this is dead even. 50% each between Sand and the Democrat Todd Halber. Will continue to follow that race.
That's right. Iowa State Treasurer is hoping to begin his 11th term. That is Mike Fitzgerald, the incumbent, against Robbie Smith, the Republican. Now just 78% of precincts reporting. Again, this race is too close to call. So far, Robbie Smith, the Republican, is leading this race with 51% of the vote.
Another of those statewide races, Tom Miller looking to return as Iowa's Attorney General, and this one is just as close as well. 51% for Brenna Bird, who was in Sioux City just days ago with former President Donald Trump. She's edged ahead of Tom Miller at this point, 51% to 49%. Miller seeking his 11th term.
In addition to dozens of candidates, Siouxland voters also had several ballot measures to decide on.
Iowans could choose to change the state's constitution in one aspect. Amendment 1 would add the right to own and bear firearms to Iowa's constitution and requires a strict scrutiny for any alleged violations of that in court.
Nebraska Amendment 1 would authorize local governments to spend revenue to develop commercial air travel service at their local airports. Just 44% of precincts reporting, but it does appear this amendment is on its way to passing, with 79% of voters saying yes. Nebraska Initiative 432 would require a valid photo ID in order to vote. Again, just 48% of precincts reporting on this, but it does appear to have enough support. It looks like it's on the road to passing, with 61% of people saying yes. Nebraska Initiative 433 would raise the state's minimum wage from $9 an hour to $15 an hour by the year 2026. Again, just 48% of precincts reporting, but 61% of voters said yes to this.
Meanwhile, South Dakota is one of 12 states that have not expanded the eligibility for their Medicaid programs. Tonight, voters got a chance to do just that, and with about 50% of the vote counted, looks like that could happen. 55-45 right now. South Dakota is in favor of expanded Medicaid availability there inside their state. Closer to Siouxland, residents in Clay County, South Dakota have decided to bond a measure that would help build a new law enforcement center and jail, $42 million plus, and this will happen as a 60-40 margin in favor of that new law enforcement center in Clay County, South Dakota. Election night 2022 will continue. Check out our forecast from Scott Larson, though, is still to come.
That's right, but first, here's a few more local results. Stay with us. Welcome back. Earlier tonight, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds has been declared the winner of this race tonight, once again elected for a second term.
She's in Des Moines tonight with her supporters. She spoke a short time ago.
It's been an incredible campaign, and as we've traveled across Iowa, we told Iowa's story. And I'm excited to say to you tonight that we are not done, because the best is yet to come.
And we do have the latest election results posted on our website right now at SiouxlandProud.com.
We'll be back later tonight with one more update on your local election results. In the meantime, ABC's election night coverage continues next.
Thanks for watching. Have a great night.